This edition of MacVoices is sponsored by Transporter. Your data in your own private cloud. Safe, secure, and cost-effective. Save $50 on any transporter from now through November 11th by visiting filetransporter.com/MV and using the offer code MV50. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the Talk of the Mac community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, I'm happy to welcome to MacVoices for the first time Mike Muhney. He is the guy who has put together VIPorbit, a contact manager that I think you're going to be very interested in. And I'm not going to give it any more build-up. I'll let Mike do that. Mike, it's great to see you. Thanks so much for being here.
Chuck, it is a pleasure, honor, and let's have some fun.
I don't disagree with that at all. Mike, though, I want to start with you before we start with the product, because you know a little something about contact management. This isn't your first rodeo.
No, I did take a course 101 in relationship management, and I got an A+, and so I think I'm an expert. No, I'm only kidding.
That'll do it.
yeah. Because I took a course, I'm an expert. Thank you, everybody, for watching this. I am the guy that co-invented, along with one other person, ACT, the product that originally created the category called contact management software designed for people who deal with people. And ACT is acknowledged as the product that was the catalyst, started the CRM industry. And it's still on the market after 26 years, and in the Windows world, still the leader in the Windows world. So quite a legacy it has, and over 10 million people have bought it. Who knows how many people have stolen it in the old non-copy protected era. It's just part of my legacy, but I do understand relationship management. And it's not that I understand it, Chuck. It's that I do consider myself a student of the way to treat people, so that not only do I deliver value to them, but as a result of doing that, I'm successful myself. And who doesn't want to have that in their lives?
You better believe it. Mike, it's sort of a tough act to follow, because you're right. It is the standard in so many industries, and anybody that's in sales knows ACT. Whether they use it or not, that may be another matter. And so to follow up on ACT is, I think, a challenge, and hopefully to improve on the whole idea of concept management. From what I know about VIPorbit, I think you've done that because you've made it a lot more accessible.
Well, you're right. It is a tough act to follow, but I'm the guy that co-invented it. So if anybody knows how to build upon it and extract from it the value, aspects, and add to it the new dimension of mobile ubiquity that we all enjoy today, from long ago when my partner and I did invent it, is an opportunity. Here's the way I look at it, Chuck. Fundamentally, the Windows world for the last 26 years has enjoyed ACT and other competitive products that it created because of its success. Products like Goldmine, etc. But in the Apple world, I'm stunned that there really hasn't been anything at all across the board for the Apple global community, which is huge. The last numbers I got just a couple weeks ago were that there's 700 million iOS users in the world. That's a pretty big market. And about 125 million Mac users. And they've not had anything like the Windows world has enjoyed with ACT. So I abandoned Windows myself back in 2005-06 era. Got my first Mac desktop, got the first iPhone when it came out in 2007. And by the end of 2009, I too was a frustrated ex-ACT user. And I had this device with me, 24/7 that I could have only lusted for back then, that was in my pocket, and I saw an opportunity, I had a need, and I was determined, and I had the confidence to just say, nobody's done it, thank goodness, I'm going to go for it, and here's VIPorbit.
Now, VIPorbit is kind of interesting to me because it doesn't, the little bit I know about ACT, I've never formally used ACT because I've never been in a true sales environment, but the little bit I know about ACT, it feels like you can get bogged down, and maybe it's just because you had to enter it all on the the desktop. You had to go back to the office and feed it all this information. But VIPorbit seems to be a lot more approachable. And again, maybe it's because of the mobile device in my pocket, as you say, that they would have lusted for back in those days, that it's easier than ever to kind of feed the contact management system and therefore make it useful.
Yeah, I would agree with that statement, but I'm going to disagree with you on an assumption you just made about yourself, that you're not really in sales. Part of the mindset back when we did invent ACT, and I maintain through this day, is that everybody sells. What you may do is architecture or law or consulting or coaching or pastoring. The list is endless, of course. But what you are is a salesperson. Why? Because in talking like this, we're assessing each other. I'm trying to give you a perspective of things. I'm effectively trying to persuade you and your listeners as to a new way to view something. I'm selling to you. You're selling your value to your listenership, right? So we're always in a state of selling. And part of the reason we have to embrace that, Chuck, is because if we all are in selling, that means we all have competitors. Because you could have talked to somebody else. How do I get your attention? How do you get my business? Because if I don't like a lot of things about you, your price, your personality, it doesn't matter what, there's other people I could go check out. And I'm going to pick one of them if I have a need, right? That's selling. So now there's a difference between everybody selling and the true salesperson that I'll call the quota-carrying, territory-managing salesperson. That's a different type of selling, right? Where I do have to have a sales-specific product. So if you remove the pipeline management and the forecasting and all of those things, everybody else still is doing selling, but they're not using tried and proven selling tools or techniques with which to capitalize on their relationship management skills and results, right? So I just want to make that comment. So I challenge you on not seeing yourself as a sales guy. I say that Einstein was a sales guy. What he did was physics, but he had to compete for federal money to do research at Princeton as opposed to Harvard, Yale, other places. He had to persuade other brilliant physicists of his day as to his theories. He was selling, but he did physics. Okay, that's how I want you to think. The positive answer to your comment, of course, is yes, it is easier today. In the ACT era, it was a brand new thing called a laptop, and they were expensive. Very few people had them, and it certainly wasn't acceptable to open it up in front of you and type things in because technology was still in its fairly early days. So I would listen to you talk. I might take notes, and then I had to wait to get back to the office, type in those notes and on a deferred basis, and I had less time to do that. Now I carry this thing with me, and I can do it real time. And by the time we're done with a phone call, for example, I could have already updated the result of the call and gotten on to the next call I've gotten scheduled or to do or whatever. And so it has made my life easier and more productive, more efficiently.
So, Mike, after all that buildup, and I've concede the point that I sell myself just like everybody does. You're right, but I love the quota carrying, territory managing. That is, I think, what most of us think of when we think of salespeople. With all that buildup, though, let's talk about the specifics of VIPorbit, what it is, how it works, which platforms it runs on. Because okay. I'll spoil that a little bit. It runs on everything that I care about: the Mac, the iPad, and the iPhone.
You're right. That's what it is. It presently is only and exclusively Apple, Mac, iPhone, iPad. And what's important to understand, Chuck, is that the data is on the device, and the code, the program, is on the device. There is no cloud connection. So even if you don't pay your phone bill, for example, and your telco cuts you off, you can still use VIPorbit because it's a device and the data is right here, accessible with the power on. If you have two or more VIPorbit versions for each of those devices, so you have an iPhone and an iPad, or an iPhone and a Mac, or all three, you're probably going to want our VIP Sync service. So that regardless of which device I enter data on, it syncs that data to the other devices as well, which really what that gives me is device independence. I don't care which of my devices. I'm talking to you right now on my MacBook. Right here is my iPad, and here's my iPhone. I mean, I've got all three right in front of me, but regardless of which one I enter data on, it's on the other devices. But if you're a single device VIPorbit user, you don't need sync because you're not syncing anything else. Also built into VIPorbit, and most especially important to the single device user, is a function called backup my stuff. And all that means is we've covered the vulnerability of the data being on the device, and what if you lose your device or it's stolen? You've lost everything. Well, we don't want that to happen, obviously. We could never reconstruct for you, nor could you yourself, all the relationships you have, everything you've done, everything you've known about them, your calendar, activity scheduled, etc. So whenever you're in a Wi-Fi zone anywhere in the world that you're logged onto, Starbucks, hotel, whatever, and you touch the backup my stuff button, it backs up your data to Amazon encrypted servers. And it keeps your last 10 backups. All it does is pushes the older ones down. You could back up 1,000 times a day for all I care. It doesn't cost you anything, and it protects you. So you get a new device because it was stolen, and you go and restore, and it shows you the 10 backups, and you presumably pick the most recent one, and you're back in business. It writes the data back down to your device. So that's kind of the platform discussion, if you will, just to kind of get that out of the way. So what does it do? I'll tell you informally to begin with what it means to me, because I'm a user too. So let me talk, firsthand, not really from the perspective of the developer, but a user, because I run my business, my life on it. It is my on-demand, instant recall, photographic memory executive assistant. The iPhone version's free, so I've got all of that for free. What is the cost? My time to enter the data. But I would say this to you. So what's the alternative? People might say, well, gosh, you got to enter their, an activity with them, and then you want to update the call and all those kinds of things. Sure you do, because you're going to have a legacy of everything you've done with that individual, on-demand, instant recall, photographic memory. Would you like to have those qualities? Yes. If I need them artificially, who cares? What's important, Chuck, is that I'm not really managing relationships. I can't manage you. You can't manage me. What we each can manage is ourselves. So what is it about myself that I want to manage to the extreme? The number one most valuable asset I think people have, and most people don't realize it, is their reputation. Our lives, our success comes down to the quality and extent, or lack thereof, of our reputation because it's perceived by other people. So what can I do to enhance and protect and grow, and penetrate even more people with it as a result, meaning referral business? I have to work on my reputation, and it's simply a means by which I'm more successful in the actions I take, the promises I make that I ended up keeping, traffic jam on the extra mile, distinguishing myself from competition. All of that is what I'm managing about myself so that you have a better perspective of the type of person I am, which I want you to see me as a professional. I want you to select me and think of me as opposed to my competition. Again, everybody has competition, and those are some of the means by which I do it. So that's kind of the intangible. So what are some of the tangible functions to get down to it? Fundamentally, it's built on a concept of orbit. So what is an orbit? The dictionary definition, apart from the celestial, is a person's sphere of resource and influence. And I believe everybody wants that. I certainly do. It's fair to say that each of our net worth ultimately is directly proportionate to our network. So how are you managing your network, which are individuals? Right? I want to enhance my net worth, whether that's money or just happiness, however you define your net worth, but I want it to be better than that. Okay, so orbits. An orbit can be anything you want. For example, you, Chuck, are in my media orbit. People I know in the media. I constitute this as a media event, right? And so whether you're a journalist, a radio broadcaster, TV, you're in media. That's one orbit. You could be in unlimited orbits, though. Maybe you're in the same country club I belong to. And I keep track of some of my friends in the country club. Well, you're in my country club orbit. You're in my poker club. you're a strategic alliance, maybe you're an investor in my company. Any and everything that you want an orbit to be, it can be, and each individual can be in unlimited orbits. Now, so far, your listeners might be saying, well, that just sounds like an Apple address book group, or a Google Circle. Yeah, but it's on steroids. So what do I mean by that? Here's where it comes down to practical and useful. I'll give you an example. I have 63 orbits today and about 1,250 contacts. And every one of those contacts is in at least one orbit, but most are in multiple orbits. And one of them is, I have an orbit called Chicago, because I go to Chicago a lot. I go to Silicon Valley. I go to New York City. I have an orbit for everybody I know in those regions of the country. I have an orbit of everybody I know in Europe, for example. So I'm going to Chicago, and I know I can justify the trip. I have it with an individual, and it's truly happened to me a few months ago. Before I scheduled my hotel and before I made my plane reservation, I went to my Chicago orbit, and I hit the tab on my phone a second time, and it brought up a window of options, one of which was send group email. I could send a group text, but I selected send group email. And I want you to pay attention to what I did so effortlessly and optimally productive. I said, send group email. The subject line came up, and all I said was, coming to Chicago, would love to get together. The body of the letter, I said, hi, hope you're doing well. I want to let you know I'm coming to Chicago around this date, and if you're available, let me know. Let's get together for some Chicago pizza, beer, whatever. Let's catch up. Take care, Mike. Now, very relaxed, but keep in mind, I know these people, 81 people in Chicagoland that I know. I hit send. And Chuck, here's what happened in that instant. That email went out to 81 people, but they were all received as an individual. So, if I said from Mike to Chuck, you would have thought, wow, Mike sent me a personal email. He's coming to Chicago. Yeah, I want to get back to him and say, let's get together. And simultaneously, it archived in each of those 81 people's records that I sent them that email. That on-demand instant recall, I can look back in time and know that I sent each of them an email about my coming to Chicago. 15 people responded to me within 3 days. 15. I expanded my productivity 15-fold, a 15-fold return on investment, however you want to slice it. I did as if I did something with one individual. I really did it to 81. So 81 people had a touch point of my name. Oh, yeah, Mike. Yeah, they remembered me. Right? And 15 saw me a few weeks later. Practical, right? That's kind of the scheme of an orbit. I mean, what else does it do? I can obviously attach all my activities with you. This call that we're on right now was scheduled at this time, at this day, at this time. And my alarm went off to say, don't forget you got the call with Chuck and all that. I've got your profile. I know the stuff that we've talked about previously. I mean, I had that. Again, I'm going to keep coming back to instant recall. It's like I have a photographic memory of everything I've done with you, right? But the call was scheduled on my calendar, and when we're done with this, I'm going to complete this activity scheduled with you on my calendar in VIPorbit, and it's going to archive that we had this video conference and whatever else we talked about. And I can literally forget it then, Chuck. But if I see you next week, if I see you a year from now, if I see you 5 years from now, and I'm using VIPorbit, right? I could say no on October 24th, whatever today's date is. We talked about this and blah blah blah. No, yeah, you mentioned XYZ, and you're going to go, wow, what a memory, and that in part distinguishes me from competition. So there's a lot it does. I don't have time to tell you all that it does. It's the iPhone version's free. Download it, take a look at it, play with it. We have video tutorials, more coming out, little 1 and 2 minute snippets. We've got a free downloadable PDF from our website for the iPhone version. We've got an iBook for the iPad and the Mac version. I do monthly webinars where you can, sign up and go to meeting, and I do tutorials, get you started, all those kinds of things. So there's a lot of ways we get you going fast. Sorry for the long-winded answer, but no, it is the true means by which I organize my life.
Well, and the passion for it clearly shows through.
Yeah, and the passion. And let me make one more comment to kind of distinguish it in the minds of people. I partly did it with you earlier, that everybody sells. Everybody has a calendar. Everybody's keeping track of what am I doing today, what am I doing tomorrow, next week, and who am I doing it with? Okay, and then what do I have to remember, or what's good to remember on the past events, transactions I've done with them to continue the relationship flow, if you will, that momentum, and et cetera, et cetera. I am actually anti-CRM, which sounds counterintuitive coming from a guy like me, since ACT is the product attributed as starting the CRM industry, customer relationship management, which truly is designed for the quota-carrying salesperson. But what I don't like about CRM is it's only good for inside my company, and therefore only good for customers and prospects. What about the rest of my life? What do I do with those people? You and I are on a maybe a charitable organization, committee members, right? And I want to have an orbit apart from my full-time job of this charitable exercise I'm part of, or whatever it may be. Where do I put those people? I can't put them in my company's CRM database. VIPorbit doesn't have any regard for inside or outside my company, and no regard for personal or business. So you're in my poker club orbit, that's personal. You're in my customer orbit, that's business. You're in both.
That's one of the things that appeals to me so much about this. And for the folks who've been paying attention to Mavericks, the new version of the Mac OS, we now have tags. And you can tag things with multiple tags, so that it's no longer a situation where you have to stick one thing in one folder, and that's sort of where it's compartmentalized. And that's the way that Orbits works, that you can be in a personal and a professional orbit, and and then 3 other orbits maybe. So that whole method of organization, it takes a little while to wrap your head around it, but once you do, it makes so much more sense than the old one file, one folder kind of structure.
Yeah, and let me make another comment. So as the co-inventor of ACT, which is a desktop, I'll call it a desktop application, a full-fledged, wide-ranging, sophisticated, it doesn't mean it's complex, but it's sophisticated, seamlessly integrated product. That's my mindset. And when I first designed, and of course my team that we all worked on VIPorbit, we wanted to bring that level of functionality down to a very small device, right? So when I say it's powerful, let's call it has layers of power, layers of value, Chuck. You don't have to use all the layers to derive the value. And I'll give you an example. So most of your listeners, or some of your listeners, I'll assume, know the name Robert Scoble, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And if you're in the high-tech business a lot, you know Scoble. Well, I've been at his home twice. I've been filmed by him talking about VIPorbit. When he first saw VIPorbit, without my even knowing what he did, he pulled his phone out of his pocket and he downloaded it. And at that time, it was a charged product. It was $10 one-time cost. Today, it's free. And he said, the reason I need this is I've got about 10,000 names on my address book, my phone list on my phone. And he said, I look at those names and I don't have the foggiest idea who most of them are. I obviously put them in there, but I don't have any idea who they are. Because there was no association. He said, the only thing I really am going to use VIPorbit for, now this might sound like a negative, the only thing, he said, the only thing that I'm going to use it for, which is going to give me great value, is I'm going to be able to create orbits, and I'm going to be able to drag and drop and put people in whatever orbits they belong. So I can think of an orbit, maybe a Cisco expert, or people that go to the World Economic Forum where he hangs around, right, in Davos, Switzerland. He'll be able to associate those names in the appropriate orbits, and it's easier to remember what the focus is of an orbit than it is to understand the association and focus of an individual. So by putting those people into an orbit, and he had 10,000 at that time, he's probably got more now. How do you manage 10,000 people and even know who they are? You can't. He found a way with VIPorbit to do that, and he gave us a great quote as a user of VIPorbit. Now, is he doing more with it? I don't know, but that alone justified it for him.
And it's a great example of you managing one set of people one way, him managing another set of people another way with the same tool. And I love that fact, because it means that it's adaptable to the way that he wants to use it, you want to use it, and I want to use it.
Right. And so when you look at the costs of the product, and again, the iPhone version's free, You determine the value you want to get from it. You determine the work and the commitment to it that will increase, a greater level of functionality. I kind of liken it in some ways, Chuck, to being a professional athlete. I know this may sound funny, but my view is business is a contact sport. Let's be honest, right? The game never ends. The challenge is always ahead of us. We all want to win, but how prepared are we? What are we doing to truly be a professional? Meaning, I'm distinguished from amateurs. Most people who even play college sports don't make it into the professional ranks. It's a very elite group of people. We all love sports. Why? Because it represents that gladiator, that winner, that victor, that challenge, and et cetera, et cetera. Well, I apply that same attitude to the way I deal with in my life with relationships, and I want to be a professional. I want that perception of you that again affects my reputation as one of a professional, not an amateur. That means I do have to take the time and make the commitment to say, okay, I'm going to schedule that call with Chuck. He made this comment. I want to remember it. I'm going to record it. And I can use Siri to speak the input even to VIPorbit if I want to. But the point is, I put it in one time, Chuck, and I literally can forget about it for good. I mean, as funny as this may sound, and I mean it with all sincerity and respect, I might not talk to you for another year. The point is, if I learn that let's say your birthday is, let's pick a date, next September 20th. So I just missed it, okay? But I learned on this call, let's say you mentioned, hey, my birthday is September 20th. I'm going to record that right when we get off this call. And I'm going to immediately schedule on September 20th of next year to either send you an email or call you, my choice, to wish you a happy birthday. Just a very practical thing, right? But the moment I put it in there, and I can set it as a recurring annual event for the next 3, 4, 5 years, whatever, the point is it took me seconds to get that in there. But what is the value of a year from now on your birthday sending you an email or phone call, and you just go, wow, I didn't even know Mike knew that or remembered that. And I distinguished myself from other people like me that you deal with, and I add that emotional layer, that emotional data, that emotional bond that drives my network and the strength of my network and the strength of my reputation. You hear me talking more about the intangible value benefits of using these kind of products than the tangible. In other words, the clinical data collection. Yeah, I do that, but that's not where the real value comes. But it's a mindset and it's a commitment, like any professional.
Mike, I want to get into a couple specifics here from your Chicago example. But first, let's back up a little bit. So I download VIPorbit to whether it's the Mac or my iOS device. What are the logistics? Is it just a simple import from my address book, or am I having to hand code any of that back in all by myself?
Yeah, what typically happens upon download on any of the devices is an import. There's import functionality in the product. Now on the phone is the little sibling, if you will, right? It's not as powerful as is the iPad, and the iPad is not as powerful as the John Deere earth mover called the Mac, right? So each has its own capabilities or restrictions, if you will. So on the phone, let's start there. The only import source on VIPorbit iPhone version is from the built-in address book. So as you're downloading, it's going to ask you, do you want us to import from the address book all your names and phone numbers and email addresses, everything, including the notes you may have, right? You want us to import that? Yes, done. You've already got, whether it's 300 people, Robert Scoble had 10,000. And I watched it import 10,000, by the way. In his case, it took about 10 minutes. And at that time, like I had a lot of, it's just a lot to import and that was an iPhone 3, okay? Not as powerful as what we have today. On the iPad, there's 5 import sources. The address book of Apple, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Google Contacts, okay? All of those are import sources. And VIPorbit on the iPad can identify duplicates. It doesn't merge them, though. It just says, well, here's 5 of Chuck. If you've imported from all 5, you have to decide which one you're going to then import into VIPorbit. The Mac version, which is the newest code base, I have those 5 import sources plus a 6th one called Skype. So I can import everybody I know on Skype. And Skype are real relationships. We've accepted an invite to connect, right? Which is different from accepting a LinkedIn request to be linked up. And most of those people I never hear from anyway. They just want to know who I know, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But you can't, right? But you can. So the nice thing about the Mac version is it does merge into one clean aggregate file all of the various files that I imported you from. So if I ended up, if you were in all 6 of those import sources, I can put you together as one clean record, Chuck. And now, with VIP Sync, presuming you've got an iPad and or iPhone, it'll sync one clean record of you that was merged from the Mac down to those other devices. And now you're consistent across all of them. So regardless of which device I input any data on, it's always going to be in that one clean record of you. So that's kind of how it works.
Okay, so we've got the import. Now, to go back to your example of the email out to the people in Chicago, when I'm sending email from within VIPorbit, am I sending it from within VIPorbit, or is it interfacing with my mail program on my Mac? How is that working?
Yeah, no, the way the code base presently is it's interfacing with the built-in Apple email client.
Do I have any other options other than Apple email, specifically Gmail?
Yeah, not presently. Right now it's just Apple. But on the phone, it's no big deal. On the iPad, it's kind of built in. I mean, I use Gmail, or we at VIPorbit Software Company use Gmail as our client, even though it says Mike at VIPorbit.com, right? It's actually Gmail. But the Apple email client is what it's only linked to presently. Okay, so if I go to your profile in VIPorbit, on my Mac, it's going to use the Apple email client. Now, will that change over time? Sure. I mean, it's going to get more integrated into not only email itself, but multiple email sources. So it's only the present the restriction.
I'm happy to welcome back Transporter by Connected Data as a sponsor of MacVoices. For those uninitiated out there, Transporter is a compact personal storage device that lets you sync your data between all of your computers and iDevices, as well as other transporters. I know what you're thinking, but I can do that now with several cloud services. Transporter is a bit different. Different in that it is private and secure. Your data isn't living on someone else's servers, waiting to be compromised. It is sitting safe on your transporter, on your desk, and on other transporters that you designate. Whose desks those sit on is up to you, because you are in control of your data. So it's private. But what if you don't care about privacy, even if you should? There's the little matter of cost. Buying one transporter can get you up to 2 terabytes of private cloud storage, and that's it. The end. No additional costs, no monthly fees, nothing. If you were to try to buy that much storage from some of the other cloud services, the bill would come with a comma, some zeros, and possibly a bouquet of roses for spending that much money with them. In fact, most of those services don't even post a price for 1 terabyte of data online, much less 2. What would you do with 2 terabytes of cloud storage? Share materials with other transporter users? Or just as a way to get large files from you to another person without having to jump through a bunch of hoops? Put important documents at your fingertips? And when I say fingertips, I mean fingertips, because Transporter just updated their iOS app on October 10th. 2 new features stand out: uploading your images or videos from your camera roll to Transporter for safekeeping, and improved routing and connectivity. That's geek speak for faster and better performance over both 3G and LTE networks. Couple those with the usefulness of having important files ready at a moment's notice, but the security of not actually having them on your iPhone or iPad in the event of a loss, and you've got yet another win-win for Transporter. One more thing to add to the list of things I love about Transporter is that you can store items on your Transporter, but don't have to have them stored on your Mac or iDevice. That's really important on a MacBook Air, where storage space is at a premium, as it is on iDevices. Those files are securely accessible, but not taking up space. And you can lose MacBook Airs almost as easily as iPads or iPhones. But if you're using Transporter, your data is secure in your own private cloud. Privacy, security, affordability. Those are the hallmarks of Transporter. We want you to have them for your data too. And that's why through November 11th, you can save $50 off the purchase of any transporter. 0 terabyte where you provide the drive, up to their flagship model with 2 terabytes on board by using the code MV50. That's capital M, capital V, and the number 50, 50. When you visit filetransporter.com/MV. Again, that's MV50 to save 50% off on any transporter configuration from now through November 11th. Thanks to Transporter for sponsoring this edition of MacVoices. Now, Robert Scoble imported 10,000 contacts. You're talking about sending out 80 emails at a crack. What kind of storage space does this take up, especially since we're talking about having the data on the device itself? Are we going to start to run out of space? I mean, I know we're getting bigger iPads and iPhones all the time, but still.
Right. No, that's a very good question. And I actually, believe it or not, I get that question all the time. So I'm looking on my iPhone right now. I just got my iPhone 5S. It is, the 64 gigabytes, so a lot of capacity. Space is really not an issue. But I'm going to show you. So I'm going to go to VIPorbit, and I'm going to go to where I would select the restore, and I'll give you precise numbers. So I don't know if you can see this. I'll hold it up close. So there are my personal last 10 backups. The top one is the most recent backup, and I'll read the numbers in case you couldn't see them. But it says I have 1,231 contacts. I've got photos. I've got log files of transactions in everybody's file. Some are lengthy, some are normal, but going back 3 years, because the iPhone version is 2.5 years. And I'm taking up 10.96 megabyte on a 64 gigabyte phone. Space is not an issue.
No, I'm embarrassed to say I have photos a lot bigger than that.
Yeah, no, we compress pictures and in the trade-off between iPhone and Mac and all that. So we have a compressed technology we're employing on the phone for space considerations, for speed considerations, as well as other things. So, when people see those numbers, and you can't deny them, I mean, it's my own database, it's pretty impressive.
Mike, you were talking about the orbits, and of course, orbits, I've just from our discussion, are obviously pretty freeform. Do we have? Does VIPorbit have a structured data capture kind of thing? First name, last name, address, zip code, and then beyond that, I mean, those are pretty standard. But then, wife's name, dog's name, birthday, are those? Is that a freeform thing we can create, or have you provided places to put that specific information?
Yeah, good question, Chuck. I'm glad you brought that up. So, like I said at the beginning, whether you're an architect, engineer, anybody could use this product because we all have relationships, we all have networks. To facilitate that, then we give you the ability to customize 14 user fields into whatever you want them to be. Presently 14. I'm sure we'll grow those more over time. But presently, I personally, out of the 14, have only come up with 9. And they're the same 9, coincidentally, that I've used ever since I co-invented ACT back in 1987 when it came on the market. Right? I have a user field called personal. Now, what does that mean, personal? Well, let's say, for example, I learned that when you were in college, you were the Heisman Trophy winner in football. Oh my gosh! Or you won an Olympic gold medal, or your father was worked for General Dwight Eisenhower in World War II. Whatever. That's something very personal about you that I want to remember because it's kind of a major thing. I'll just call it that. But there's one thing I always want to know about you that transcends everything. It's something like that. I also then have a field called business, what does that mean? Business. I'll give you an example. Let's say you last year, 5 years ago, doesn't matter, were nominated and won the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year Award. Or in your industry, you were written about as one of the top 25 leading executives in your industry in that year. Or you had a picture taken with the President of the United States in honor. That's a business thing, but it's a personal business, if that makes sense. Okay?
Perfectly.
I have a field called dates. And what is a date? Well, when I do learn your birthday, a lot of people put their birthday on LinkedIn, so you don't even have to tell me. I can find it there on LinkedIn. I'll put it in there, and then I'll schedule that to do or that call, like I mentioned earlier. But that's what it is. Dates means fundamentally two things to me: birthdays and anniversaries. I have one called family. What does that mean? Well, it means if you're married and you never mention your wife's name, but I see you have a wedding ring, I'm going to assume you're married, so I'm going to just put married. If you say, well, my wife, Joanne, I'm going to put Joanne. Now, maybe you and she comes on this video, or we go have lunch, and the three of us have a good time. Of course, I don't want to forget Joanne's name, even though I might not ever see her again, but I want to say to you, say hi to Joanne for me. Those kinds of things. So I have a family field. I put literally in parentheses, if you were to see my database, things like fiance, girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife, whatever, if I know your kids, I put kids there. So anything family of names I just want to remember. I have a referred by field. I'm referred often to other people or from other people, and I want to know how I learned about the relationship. How did you and I first connect? One of them is you wrote me an email. As funny as that sounds, a referred by in my list. You can create lists for every field in VIPorbit, further customization. It corresponds to that field. So I've got things like specific individuals who are always referring people to me. So Tom and Joe and Sue and etc. I'm referred by people, or I'm referred by events I attend, conferences, and I met them at that conference. I want to remember it was at that conference that that is the reference point of how we met. Things like that. So I have a referred by field. I have a field called hot buttons. We live in strange times. We live in politically correct or politically incorrect times. I better be careful and know what your hot buttons are. Are you a flaming liberal? Are you a flaming Republican? Are you a Tea Party? And that's just politics. Maybe you're a fanatic Notre Dame football, fan. I mean, what are your hot buttons? You're for gun control, you're against gun control. It's nice to know who are you? And so I have a hot button user field. I'm just giving you some sense of the universality of these fields to customize it to what I want, what I'll call, Chuck, the emotional data, not the clinical data. You're right. Phone number and address and your title and your company, that's clinical data. But I really get under your skin in a positive way with the emotional data. And those are where I use the user fields.
And again, it's obvious that they're very customizable. I think that a customizable field with a list buried inside of it is a fantastic idea.
Right.
Because it's all about getting this information in, making it easy to get in, and therefore access when the time comes.
Exactly.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
Now, another thing I've learned about VIPorbit, we've talked about the different versions, and you kind of alluded to it at the start, but there is a paid sync service. And that is, am I correct, the only way to get data syncing across? I'm not able to use Dropbox or iCloud. It's the VIPorbit sync service.
Yes, that is correct. And let me explain a little bit of the rationale why. And you got to go back to when we coded the product as well. But Dropbox is an entire file send. It's not a bit by bit real-time transaction capture, right? So Dropbox really isn't or wasn't, able to do what we did in the ability to immediately get information, or near immediately. The broadband, if you're in a bad area, might cut you off for a little bit, but to get data from here to my other devices. So we didn't use Dropbox, couldn't. iCloud is not, hasn't been dependable. I don't mean that in any disrespectful way toward Apple, but it doesn't do what VIPorbit users need to have done real time. And so by giving away the iPhone version, you don't have any cost, really. We still do customer support for you. iPad version presently is $10. We have sales from time to time where it's a one-time cost of $5. I mean, it's not even worth talking about almost. The Mac version is $49.99, one-time cost. So they're really relatively low prices, if any, for tremendous value. So where do we make some money? I have to stay in business to continue to satisfy your need and value of VIPorbit. We charge $5 a month, every month, no contract, for VIP Sync. You can subscribe for a year in advance by paying $45, which is a 25% discount. So all in, let's say you do pay $5 a month. That's $60 a year. After you pay the $50 for the Mac one-time cost, and you pay $5 or $10 for the iPad, and the phone is free, I mean, we're going to argue over $50 a year thereafter, or $100 up front. Act today is still about $500 for a single user version. $500. I'm giving all of those to you for less than $100. Period.
Yeah, if somebody uses ACT, I mean, the price is not even worth discussing. Right. I'm more interested in making sure that the listeners and viewers know that there is a cost associated with it, and so you're going to need to be serious about it. But that there is a proprietary way. On the other hand, I kind of like the idea that there's a proprietary sync, that some of my critical data is not out there flying around with all the other data that can be flying around.
Yeah, no, that we're kind of touching on a little bit here, the issue of privacy and who owns the data and all those things. And, people, so let me make a comment about social media here. You look at Facebook and products like that, Google, they really own the data. I mean, once it's out there, it's not my data to take care of or to extract or to eliminate them from any access to going forward. That's not the world we live in. So, the information on relationship management is really between two people, you and me, Chuck. I can get all the social media information about you that you've put out there on Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter, right? Or just do a Google search on you and whatever's been out there. Okay, but everybody has access to that, meaning my competition. In the ability of and value proposition of a VIPorbit product or any contact management product, not just VIPorbit, it's really about you. It's private information, because this isn't out there, right? We have, you might mention things that are very unique to not only our relationship, but how we're moving towards something in our relationship, whether it's personal or business. But from a business standpoint, you think I'm going to go out there and tweet and put on Facebook some of the confidential information you just told me that might enable me to win your business? Of course not. So I view it very confidentially, very privately. I keep my cards close to my chest, use that old cliche, but it's out of respect for you and knowing that part of the way that you develop a good perspective and I develop a stronger reputation as a result is by demonstrating to you that you can trust me. And trust means discretion and mature, responsible treatment of the relationship details between us.
And I think that's such a key point, that everybody right now seems to be sharing so many things, and it's great up to a point. But then when it's a business relationship, I want it to be between just the two of us. I don't want to share that part. Maybe I would be comfortable sharing the fact that we're doing business, but I don't want the terms of the loan or the commission or whatever to be public. It's just that's none of anybody's business, and it would be giving competitive information away that is just not something you want to do.
Right. I know this may sound funny, but I think most people have heard the phrase, a little black book. And we all know that the world's, premier type celebrities, both political and entertainment, for example, they have a little black book. Michael Jordan has Tiger Woods' phone numbers and email addresses. And don't we wish we had access to their little black book? So I say it in the most positive, powerful sense. Every one of us can have that. The point is most people don't because they're too lazy to do that, right? And know those little details, but it's what distinguishes people that have those powerful spheres of resource and influence and orbit that you and I don't have. If we take the lazy way out and just rely on the built-in siloed information of, well, there's iCal, I can put my lunch down with Chuck, and Chuck's in my address book, I know his phone number and email address, but those two don't even know that they exist with each other, and there's no integration of them. I mean, I don't know if your readers can see this again, but I subscribe to Fortune magazine as one of my magazines. So here's the cover, the current issue with Sheryl Sandberg of Facebook, and in it there's a huge article on Michael Ovitz, and it says Ovitz does Silicon Valley. The guy that started he was a key agent, etc. But here is a picture and I'm going to read it to you. So I don't know if you can see this, but there's lines to other people surrounding him. And I know you can't read it, so I'll read it for you. It simply says, 8 of the businessmen in Silicon Valley, some established, some you've barely heard of, who are in Ovitz's orbit. Okay? I'm talking guys like Ron Conway, Mark Andreessen, Peter Thiel, the guy that funded this guy called Mark Zuckerberg for this little company called Facebook. Imagine people having being in your orbit. Well, you and I have people in our orbits, and that is their little black book, and they can pick up the phone and call or text on a moment's notice any people in their orbit. And VIPorbit is designed to give you, even though you and I aren't celebrities, the same type of reach powerfully into our network. So again, you decide, Chuck, how powerful, how profound, how unique you want to be perceived and valued in your network that you're constantly working at, whether you realize it or not.
So let's see, we've covered input, we've covered output, so to speak, we have covered data fields, we've covered sync, we've covered the devices. Is there anything, any key point that we've missed? I mean, I'm sure you can talk about it for hours, and I want to go explore it for hours, but is there any key point or any other key features that we need to be aware of?
Well, I occasionally, it's normal search, so here's another practical one. And I prefer to try to be practical and useful, not all of this ethereal stuff that it could do. And it can do some ethereal stuff. But so what are some practical things? Let's say I'm going to sponsor a golf tournament. There's scrambles that take place all the time across the country, probably across the world, but right in my own backyard. So they come after me as a business and say, would you like to sponsor one of the holes, right? And bring coverage to my business. Sure, yeah, happy to do that. So what do? I'm going to go into my search capability in VIPorbit and search on anybody that likes golf. I don't care what orbits they're in. I just want to know, who did I put as hobbies is another one of my user fields, by the way. Because virtually everybody has a passion with something, right? Writing, photography, reading, traveling, and all of the above. I've got a list probably today of about 75 hobbies, and I'm continuing to grow that list, so I just tap them when I learn what your hobbies are. But the point is, I can do a search on golf, and let's say it finds 43 people. I have the option to save that as a unique orbit, right on the spot, right there. Okay, here's everybody that has some interest in golf. 43 people, I can save it as an orbit, or I can add it to an existing orbit. Let's say I save it, called Golf Tournament. It's a temporary thing. Now imagine going back to that email where I can now say to everybody in that golf tournament orbit, which is only going to be temporary until the tournament's done, hey, I have tickets, would like to invite you as our guest to visit and come to our booth, drinks and snacks served, whatever. And I hit send, and everybody gets an invite. I literally could do that entire process, Chuck, in about, depending on the length of my email, which of course I can speak, maybe a minute or two. I don't care if it's 81 or 810. I can do it that fast and get my name out there again and make people feel good, and I'm going to get a certain percentage of response, etc. So search capability that you tie into orbit architecture capabilities. I can do reports off the phone. How does a report work? Let's give a bad example, right, that none of us ever wants to have, but what if we did, right? That's kind of the insurance theme. You want to be protected because you never know. So let's pick kind of a negative one. The IRS wants to audit me because they're saying it doesn't sound right that I'm claiming so much mileage for all of this, these activities I've had, meetings, etc. I'm not saying VIPorbit captures, point A to point B. What I am saying is this. I can go into VIPorbit reports and say, I want a completed activities report for the entire month of June 2012. Let's pick a month. I could pick the whole year. I'm just saying, let's pick a month. And it's then going to say, well, do you want to do it for your entire database, or do you want to do it for a specific orbit? I want to do it my entire database, all 1,250 people. And I hit go, and in a matter of probably, I'm going to say maybe 10 seconds, if that, It'll compile everybody that I met with during the entire month of June 2012, and say, here it is. And what it does is it immediately attaches it as a PDF to you as an email recipient. And if I want to add my boss to it, or the IRS, and mail that and say, look, you want the documentation? Here's everybody I had meetings with in that month last year. And it would be in your inbox in less than a minute. When I go back and I say on-demand instant recall photographic memory, I'm not exaggerating that claim. Try to compile something you did last week. Can you even remember everything you did yesterday absolutely and completely accurate? No, probably can't, unless you're Superman. I'm not. I can't. But I can with VIPorbit. So, again, we're getting into a little bit more of the power area. You may or may not need it, but it's there if you do. And that's the point.
And it also sounds like software you can grow into, that I can start doing one thing with it, and then it's expandable, it's adaptable, and that's another thing that I love about the idea.
Yeah, another aspect, I guess, I'm trying to think, if I had to summarize some of the key functional areas, another one is the ability to connect you to other people in my VIPorbit database. So I told you I've got 1,231, right? I obviously know these people in various levels. Some are new, some I've known for a long time. Doesn't matter. I know these people. I put them in VIPorbit. I either imported them or took their business card and typed it in, whatever. What I didn't know until something happened was that you know other people in my VIPorbit database. So once I learned that you know somebody or they know you, I go to your profile, let's say, Chuck, and I link you to as many other people that I know that you know. So when I go to any of your profiles and I hit the tab VIP links, I know who each of your networks are. And it's not just knowing you. What makes me more powerful and professional is understanding your network, right? And so before I might call you, before I'm going to visit you, especially in the early days of a relationship where it's more crucial, obviously, and I'm still getting to know you. Wow, I didn't know that you knew Sam, and I know Sam really well, or I don't know him very well, doesn't matter. But I know the two of you know each other, and I know Sam is a flaming liberal or conservative, whatever. And if you really are you good friends with him? Oh yeah, we're best friends. Yeah, I'm going to know, okay, whenever you're with this person and this is their network, do or don't talk about these certain things, for example, right? Be aware. And therefore, being aware, it equips me, arms me to be more professional and, I don't know, polite, avoid trouble. Don't put my foot in my mouth. Look at it any way you want. Check, but the point is, knowledge equips me to be smarter and to act smarter and to succeed better because of being more informed.
So where do we send people? I mean, obviously the iOS apps are in the App Store, but where do we send people to learn more about VIPorbit, to access the training videos, to do everything that you talked about earlier?
Okay, appreciate that. The Mac version, I know this may sound funny, but the Mac version, you have to be on the Mac and go to the Mac App Store for the Mac download. You can go to our website, www.VIPorbit, V as in violin, VIPorbit.com. We are going in just a couple days, and I don't know when you're going to broadcast this and the live, sustainable life of this, but in a couple days, that being October, 26th, 28th, 2013, we're going to have a free trial version of the Mac version downloadable straight from our website. It'll be a full functioning 30-day trial. Everything I've described, you'll be able to do. And if you decide that you do want to buy it, beginning from day 5, with only 5 days left, and every day thereafter, you'll say, well, I only have 3 days left, 2 days left, you want to upgrade, and it will then take you directly to the Mac App Store to purchase the download. And you will not lose your data that you've built up over those 30 days. So that's something new coming. That's
great. So I can try it free on the iPhone, and now I'll be able to try it free for a limited time on the Mac.
Right. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Fantastic. Mike, I said it earlier, the passion shows through the enthusiasm. I'm really excited to go check out VIPorbit for myself. I can think of a few special ways that I'd like to use it to make me a little more responsive, a little more organized.
Yeah, and I would like to offer it to you, Chuck, if it's meaningful to you. It's always nice to give, value. Obviously, when you have that giving attitude toward people, invariably you get, back, right? That's just the way of life. So to your listenership, if they're interested in a specific, to you, because they follow you, webinar, I'm happy to conduct that under your oversight. So people who want to have a tutorial from me on a GoToMeeting link that they can register for once sent out to, have them email you, and then let you decide between them, okay, what's a good day, or we've picked a day and time. You send me the email saying, can we have a webinar for the people who listen to me on a day and time, and I'll schedule it, and it'll be your people, and I won't even know who they are, but it'll be under your oversight as a service to you and to them.
That's very generous, Mike, and I really appreciate that. I will look forward to it. Folks, okay. So to take Mike up on his offer, you need to email me, chuck@macvoices.com. If you would, please use the subject line VIPorbit. That'll make sure that I can capture it a little bit easier, and we'll get something set up, and we'll all learn from Mike a little more about VIPorbit and how we can use it.
Yeah, and so I'll finish with this, Chuck. Meaningful business will always come from meaningful relationships. What are you doing to affect that? You've got to make a decision. There's a saying, even if you're on the right track, you'll still get run over if you stand still. Competition doesn't let us rest.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mike, thank you so much. You've been very generous with the time. And listen, I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the fact that this is the second interview we did about VIPorbit. The first one crashed and burned due to some software problems. So thank you so much for your patience and being willing to do it again and get the information out.
My pleasure, Chuck. It's my pleasure, and I'm honored you thought of me, so thank you very much.
I will have links in the show notes to everything that Mike and I talked about, to all the versions of VIPorbit, to their website, and I'll even try to remember to send out, because by then I'll be using VIPorbit, so I will remember to send out a little something about the new Mac version, being able to try it for free.
Okay, very good.
Until the next time, I'm Chuck Joyner, and this is MacVoices. Thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for links, show notes, to subscribe, to connect with Chuck on Twitter, app.net, Google+, Facebook, and for more Apple, Mac, and tech-related shows, including MacVoices, Mac Notables, the Mac Jury, and the MacVoices Briefing. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com.